The journey to Egypt had been long for Jacob. He was very old now, his body weary from many years. His beloved son Joseph, whom he thought was lost forever, was alive. Joseph was a great ruler in Egypt, second only to Pharaoh himself. So, Joseph brought his father Jacob and his brothers to meet the mighty Pharaoh. Imagine the scene: a simple shepherd, leaning on his staff, standing before the king of the most powerful nation on earth. It must have been quite a sight for everyone in the royal court. Pharaoh looked at Jacob with great interest. This was the father of the man who had saved Egypt from starvation. He saw a man who had clearly lived a very long life. So, Pharaoh asked a question that was probably on everyone's mind. "How old are you?" he inquired. Jacob's answer was a bit surprising, and perhaps a little sad. He said his years had been few and difficult, and they did not match the years of his ancestors. He felt his life had been full of hardship, even at 130 years old. Then, something truly remarkable happened. Jacob, this foreign shepherd, did something bold. He blessed Pharaoh. In those days, it was usually the greater person who blessed the lesser. Yet, here was Jacob, a newcomer, a guest in the land, offering a blessing to the supreme ruler of Egypt. Pharaoh, to his credit, seemed to accept this blessing graciously. Perhaps he sensed the deep wisdom and faith in this old man. It was an unexpected turn of events, showing Jacob's strong spirit. Pharaoh was clearly impressed by Joseph and now by his family. He was a practical ruler too. Joseph had saved his country after all. So he generously offered Jacob and his family a place to live in Egypt. He told Joseph to settle his father and brothers in the very best part of the land. This act of kindness from Pharaoh set the stage for the Israelites' stay in Egypt. It was a hopeful beginning in a new land, all thanks to God's work through Joseph. Pharaoh kept his word to Joseph and his family. He instructed Joseph to settle his father and brothers in the land of Goshen. This wasn't just any land, it was described as the best of the land. Goshen was fertile and well-watered, perfect for shepherds and their flocks. It was a wonderful provision, especially as the famine was still gripping the entire region. The family of Israel, who had faced starvation in Canaan, now had a place of safety and abundance. They had room to grow. So Jacob and his sons, along with their wives, children, and all their livestock, settled down in Goshen. They were finally safe from the terrible famine. Joseph made sure they had everything they needed. Food was plentiful for them, even while others in Egypt and surrounding lands were struggling. It was a stark contrast, showing God's incredible provision for his people through Joseph's wisdom and position. They could finally breathe easily and begin to rebuild their lives in this new, hospitable environment. In Goshen, the Israelites began to thrive. The Bible tells us they were fruitful and multiplied greatly. They became numerous and strong in that land. It was a peaceful time for them, a period of growth and prosperity. While the Egyptians were selling their land and eventually themselves to Pharaoh for food, Joseph's family was secure. They were guests, but they were also becoming a distinct people, growing in numbers and identity within the borders of Egypt, yet somewhat separate in Goshen. Meanwhile, Joseph continued his important work for Pharaoh. The famine was severe, and Joseph's wise administration kept Egypt stable. He gathered all the money, then the livestock, and finally the land of the Egyptians for Pharaoh in exchange for food. This made Pharaoh incredibly powerful and wealthy. And because Joseph was in charge, his family in Goshen benefited from this stability and order. They were protected and well cared for, living peacefully under Joseph's watchful eye and Pharaoh's favor. Jacob lived in Egypt for 17 more years after arriving. These years were peaceful compared to much of his earlier life. He saw his family grow and prosper in the land of Goshen. He had the joy of seeing Joseph's sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, grow up. But Jacob knew his time on earth was coming to an end. He was 147 years old. He called for his son Joseph, the one who had been lost and was found, the one who had saved them all. He had an important request for him. Jacob made Joseph swear a solemn oath. "Do not bury me in Egypt," he pleaded. He wanted to be buried with his fathers, Abraham and Isaac, in the land of Canaan. This was the land God had promised to them. Even though Egypt had been a refuge, Jacob's heart was still in the promised land. Joseph promised his father he would honor this wish. This showed Jacob's deep faith in God's promises, looking beyond their current comfort in Egypt to the future God had for his descendants. Before he died, Jacob wanted to bless Joseph's two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. Joseph brought them to his father. Manasseh was the older, so Joseph placed him at Jacob's right hand for the primary blessing. Ephraim, the younger, was at Jacob's left, but Jacob, though his eyesight was failing, deliberately crossed his hands. He placed his right hand on Ephraim's head and his left on Manasseh's. Joseph tried to correct him, thinking it was a mistake. "Not so, my father," he said. But Jacob insisted, saying the younger would be greater. Then Jacob gathered all 12 of his sons around his bedside. It was time for his final words to each of them. These weren't all sweet and gentle blessings. Some of his words were poetic, foretelling the future of their tribes. Others were quite sharp and critical, recalling past failings. Reuben, his firstborn, was told he was unstable as water and would not excel due to his past sin. Simeon and Levi were rebuked for their violence, but Judah received a powerful blessing of leadership and Joseph a blessing of fruitfulness. It was a dramatic family meeting. When Jacob finally breathed his last, a great period of mourning began. Joseph wept deeply for his father, falling upon his face and kissing him. He then commanded his physicians, who were skilled in Egyptian practices, to embalm his father. This was an Egyptian custom, preparing the body for burial, and it took 40 days. All of Egypt mourned for Jacob for 70 days, a sign of the high respect they held for Joseph and his father. It was a state-level mourning for this patriarch of Israel. Joseph then went to Pharaoh to ask for permission to take his father's body to Canaan for burial, as he had sworn. Pharaoh readily agreed. And so a massive funeral procession set out from Egypt. It included Joseph, his brothers, many of Pharaoh's officials, chariots, and horsemen, a very great company. They traveled to the land of Canaan and mourned with a great and very solemn lamentation at the threshing floor of Atad. Then they buried Jacob in the cave of Machpelah, the ancestral tomb. After they returned to Egypt from burying their father, a new fear gripped Joseph's brothers. With Jacob gone, they worried that Joseph might finally decide to pay them back for selling him into slavery all those years ago. "What if Joseph holds a grudge against us and pays us back for all the wrongs we did to him?" they whispered to each other. They were genuinely scared. So they sent a message to Joseph, humbly begging for his forgiveness yet again, reminding him of their father's supposed last wish. Joseph wept when he heard their words and saw their fear. He reassured them with incredible grace. "Don't be afraid," he told them. "Am I in the place of God?" He famously said, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." He promised to continue providing for them and their children. Joseph lived to be 110 years old. Before he died, he made the Israelites promise to carry his bones with them when God eventually led them out of Egypt and back to Canaan. Genesis ends here, with Israel safe in Egypt, but with Joseph's bones waiting, a bittersweet hint of a future journey and the story of Exodus yet to come.